How would you rate your relationship with stress on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being I have a very poor relationship with stress, to 10 being I have a very unhealthy relationship with stress. Fast forward over the last, probably year and a half of really diving deep, very intense therapy sessions, facing a lot of truths. I really have come to understand like how I have moved through the stress cycle and why it was so important, which is why I'm taking the angle that I am tonight to just talk through chapter 1. Because I needed to first just be honest and just like bounce the whole strong woman. I need to survive in the hustle culture, moving from one stressor to another stressor. I needed to like bump that whole theory and thought process and really just get ingrained in understanding what is stress, what stress is, how does it show up in my life each and every day, and how can I start understanding how I can complete the cycle. And that's really all I'm going to talk about tonight. We're going to have probably another 30 minutes where we're just going to talk about stress. We're going to talk about burnout, emotional exhaustion. And then I'm going to share some ways that you can start to complete the stress cycle, proven scientific ways. And I'll even along the way share ways that it's helped me as well. So I want to ask a question before I get started. How would you rate your relationship with stress on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being I have a very poor relationship with stress, to 10 being I have a very unhealthy relationship with stress? And that's just without me even walking you through some of the things that like what stress is and all that. How would you rate your relationship with stress? And you can put that in the chat, put your score there. And I'm going to end with that same question later because I think just the understanding, and you may already be knowledgeable of this, but hopefully the way that I talk about it tonight blesses you to understand it in a way that we really just truly know that stress never goes away, or stressors never go away. I'll talk about that in a minute. But how we deal with stress, that's what can shift by the way we complete the cycle. My goal is to debunk the hustle culture and help us redefine our relationships with stress, work, and rest. So this book is broken out in 3 sections. This week, I'm going to talk about completing the cycle, as well as some background on stress and burnout. Next week, I am going to talk about those lofty goals that we have that make us feel stressed, as well as the human giver syndrome. So I'm going to go through chapters 2 through 4 next week. The third week, I'm going to go through chapters 5 and 6, and that's going to talk about our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with others as it relates to stress. And then we're going to end the cycle with getting strength. That's the best way I can define it. Us resting and being in tune with our sleep to give us strength. And then just how we define strength is kind of how we wrap the book up. So, and what strength looks like for us going forward. Like I described, I was in several different situations, right, where I was running from one stressor to the other. And when I think about, just me, the way I was rating my relationship with stress when I first started this process, I would have probably rated me a 1. A 10. I had a very poor relationship with stress. I was always in survival mode and I was moving from one stressor to another. So this stresses me out, so I'm going to go to this stressor. Then this stresses me out. And so I was going from one place to another and trying to convince myself that intellectually, like, oh, this will eventually go away. Not knowing that I was going to have to make it going away with my actions and me really believing in and moving myself through the healing process. So there's a couple things that happen as it pertains to stress. So we have stressors, and then we have the stress itself. So stressors are those external and internal forces, things that are happening in our everyday lives. Work can be a stressor. Marriage can be a stressor, just from my own explanation that I used earlier. And I won't talk about that all night, but it's a stressor. Sometimes marriage is a stressor. Being a mother can be a stressor. Buying a home. It doesn't have to be good or bad things, but the stress is the internal, external thing that is happening around you and in your environment that is causing you to feel stress. So it's activities and things that are going on in your environment. And there's actually I want to quote his name correctly, Holmes Rahi. There's a life stress inventory document where, believe it or not, stressors are very, very common. So, and they're defined by like life events and life activities. And I have this stress management deck that I have for our community that I'm going to eventually share, but it walks through all these things that are stressors. And I'm going to name a few just to see if they resonate with you, and just put a fire in the chat if some of these things have happened in your life over the last year. Marriage, pregnancy, marital reconciliation is a stressor. So you're reconciling your marriage, and that's a stressor as well, because it's causing you to have to start to do and think about things differently. Changing to a different line of work. That was one of the ones I had. Taking a mortgage out on your home. That's a stressor. Let me give you just a couple of more. Outstanding personal achievements. So when you're doing the dang thing, that is a stressor. Major holidays, vacations, all the planning and things that you do for vacations. Those are stressors. Those are things that are telling your brain that you need to either fight, run, or freeze. Or I need to make sure, just even excitement, it makes you feel those emotions, right? And so on some of the activities that I just walked you through, the Holmes Rahi life stress inventory, it scores each of the stressors. And if your score is anything greater than 150 points, basically you need to figure out how to complete the cycle, or you might die. And that's the best way that I can describe it. That resonated with me of it doesn't matter how calm you are, how much you meditate. If you are living life, you are facing and approaching stressors at all times. At all times, you are facing stressors if you are living life. If you are not facing stressors, then you are likely dead. And so I would assume that you're not on this chat if you're not facing stressors. And then the stress is the thing, it's basically your body's response to the stressor. And a great example that they used in the book was the lion, right? So just imagine that and this is an example used all the time, but imagine that you're being chased by a lion. So you're not going to stand there. You're not going to freeze. Your body is automatically going to go into survival mode. So that is the flight. Like, I need to run. I got a lion. I'm going to run right now because I'm scared. So you go and you run from the lion. Then you run from the lion, and basically your heart is beating fast. Your blood is pumping at an alarming rate through your veins, and your bloodstream is meant for like steady fluid flow, right? But when you're going through that stress cycle, and what happens is it makes your heart beat fast, it's pumping the blood fast, and then basically you're signaling to your body that it is not safe, which causes blood disease, heart attack. And I like to liken it to always being in fear all the time that, you're going to the bad things are going to happen to you, right? Always being in fear. So always your blood pumping at a very irregular rate. That's stress inside of your body that's happening. And if you don't complete the cycle, then you end up you have to tell your body that that it's safe. And if you don't complete the cycle, your body never knows that it is safe. So the lion's chasing you is the example they use in the book. The lion's chasing you, then you find safety and the lion is gone. So the stressor is gone. The lion's gone, or maybe somebody shot the lion, whatever it looks like. The lion's gone, but your body doesn't know yet that you are safe because it just went through that very uncomfortable cycle I just described of your blood pumping, your heart beating, you're breathing hard, pumping all these toxins into your blood, stress hormones going all throughout your blood, and you haven't released those in any way. So that's the stressor and the stress. So the stressor is the external thing. The stress is what your body experiences because of the stressor. And just because you deal with the stressor does not mean that you're dealing with the stress itself. Have you ever, let's just say you did, leave a toxic workplace. I'll use that as an example. when you left your toxic workplace, when you got out of the environment, did you just immediately feel better? Or was some of the things that were happening in that toxic workplace where you may have experienced some trauma, when it comes up for you today, does it make you still feel something? Maybe your hair stands up on your arm, or you get goosebumps thinking about some of the things that you experience. Or use divorce as an example. If any of you have ever been through divorce, or went through parents that had a divorce, or lost a loved one, and you went through the anxiety of losing a loved one, does it just go away because you told it to go away, or do you still feel that when you start to think about it if you haven't completed the cycle? And 9 times out of 10, probably more than 9 times out of 10, because this is scientifically proven stuff. If you don't deal with the actual stress that happened to you, even though the stressor is gone, you haven't completed the cycle, and eventually that is going to come back to you. And that's what leads to that burnout. All that stress that's stored up in your body, emotional exhaustion that leads you to burnout. So I talked about what, inspired them to write the book. Actually, I didn't. So that's the cycle that happens. The lion is gone, right? The lion is gone, but the stress that happened in your body still exists. And one of the things that Amelia talked about was that she was in the hospital, and she was having this incredible pain inside. So if you're, basically toxins in your blood, stress stores in your body, and it can resonate as pain. It can come to fruition as pain in your body. So she was in the hospital, and the doctor was basically telling her, like, hey, you just need to go home and relax. And the answer to stress, and her sister, the other co-writer of the book, was basically a mental health. She's a doctor, was taught mental health. And she was like, no, actually, stress can show up in your body as pain. And all the things that you've been doing, I think she was pursuing her PhD at the time, all the things that she had been doing, good stressors, bad stressors, she had stress stored up in her body, and it was causing her to feel physical pain. And the doctor was just telling her to go home and relax. There wasn't a prescription that said, hey, go complete the stress cycle. So that was what inspired them to write the book. And it resonated so much with me as I shared my story at the beginning of, okay, so I need to understand how I complete my cycle of stress after experiencing burnout. So burnout, I'm going to talk about what burnout is. And I got that 99-cent response rate of burnout. And what I find when I ask people about this is it is very easy for them to define what burnout feels like, but us defining what burnout is a bit of a challenge.